Okay, the shield in any first-person shooter, especially in a game like Doom, seems like a pretty questionable element. What now? Are you supposed to hide behind it instead of running and gunning like you usually do in these games? But you see, modern Doom games were never about just running and gunning, were they? After Doom 2016 was released, the combat puzzle concept started to be mentioned here and there. As creative director Hugo Martin put it, the game is going to provide you with a problem that you're going to need to solve, and you solve it through aggression, through skill, through the mastery of the elements in the game. In other words, you've got to be smart about it. Pick your targets, take out the biggest threats first, then clean up the smaller ones. Keep moving to dodge incoming projectiles and look for chances to grab health or ammo. It's all about using everything you've got to win the fight and solve the puzzle. In Doom Eternal, developers improved this idea and added more tools for solving problems like the mid hook on the super shotgun and dash. They worked as counterparts. The hook lets you close the distance to an enemy quickly, and dash lets you move slightly away just as fast, if needed. There was a lot more though, like an on-shoulder flamethrower that helps you get some armor by setting enemies on fire, or an ice bomb for stunning demons. Along with that, the puzzles themselves became more complex, offering players more challenges. Doom: The Dark Ages, the latest game in the series, has its own iteration of combat puzzles, as well as a new tool for solving them, the shield. It's not the only tool, of course, but the most important one. And there's a lot to talk about in terms of how the shield changed almost everything. The way you move, fight demons, and, as a result, solve the puzzle. But before we begin, let's define what a combat puzzle looks like in Doom: The Dark Ages, and what elements it consists of. I'm sure there are more, but in terms of shield mechanics, these are the most relevant. First is space and distance. You need to know how to make the space around you work in your favor. Second is single powerful demons. You need to recognize different types of strong enemies and understand how to deal with them. And third is crowds of enemies. You need to know how to take advantage of swarms of common demons. The shield is your answer to all of these elements, and here's how it works. The first thing the game teaches you when you engage in battle is the shield charge mechanic. It allows you to travel great distances and deal damage to enemies on impact. And there is a reason why the game shows you this mechanic first. You see, space in the Dark Ages has become an even more important part of the puzzle. Most arenas in the game are massive, true battlefields, where the distance between you and your enemies can span tens of meters. At the same time, the game doesn't reward you for avoiding fights or keeping your distance. That's because the Dark Ages, maybe more than any modern Doom game, leans heavily into the push-forward combat philosophy. First introduced in Doom 2016, it's all about staying aggressive. If you want to succeed, you've got to stay close to the enemies. And there is no faster way to get close than shield charge. Just look at this. This brutal move that slams you into enemies from across the battlefield seems to be one of the reasons there's no double jump in the Dark Ages. Because why bother double jumping to reach an enemy when you can just charge into them? Same goes for dash, which in Doom Eternal gave you a way to create space or dodge out of danger. In the Dark Ages you can't dash, but if things get too hot, you can use the shield charge to pull yourself out of one fight and get to a better position elsewhere. Controlling the distance between the Doomslayer and his enemies isn't just possible, it's often essential. Some enemies actually force you to close the gap, either by attacking from a distance or activating defensive abilities when you're too far. Take Cyberdemon and Agadon Hunter for example. Cyberdemon can summon demonic spikes from the ground when you stray too far, attacks that reach nearly anywhere in the arena and deal heavy damage, so it's vital to close the gap quickly. Agadon Hunter, on the other hand, activates an unpierceable energy barrier when you're too far. And to make it drop it, you must get close, which puts you face to face with a new piece of the puzzle, handling the enemy's behavior and skills in close quarters combat. Shield parry is the second major mechanic the game teaches you. You can parry melee attacks and deflect green mark projectiles. And since nearly every enemy has one or both of these attack types, learning when and how to parry is crucial. Against the Cyber Demon and Agadon Hunter, parrying is your most effective tool. Sure, you can try to fight them from a distance, and sometimes that might even work, but it's inefficient and risky. The best strategy is to close the gap and handle them up close, parrying their attacks and punishing their openings. The trick is the way you fight Cyber Demon and Agadon Hunter isn't a template for all enemies. Broadly speaking, there are 4 major types of enemies in the Dark Ages, outside of fodder demons like zombies and soldiers. We already know the first type, which includes Cyber Demon and Agadon Hunter, enemies that stand their ground and force you to close in to deal with them. The second type includes demons like Nightmare Impstalker, Hell Knight and Komodo. These don't wait for you to get close, they aggressively charge at you themselves. That makes timing of your parries absolutely critical, especially since their attack windows are short and unforgiving if you're playing on higher difficulty with those tunable sliders maxed out. The third type consists of evasive flying enemies like Acolytes, Revenants and Cacodemons. They try to maintain distance and often become major threats if not taken down quickly. Then we come to the fourth and perhaps most interesting group, long-range attackers like Pinky Rider, Mancubus and Arachnotron. These demons prefer to stay a few steps away and use long-range attacks, but if you dare to close the distance, they'll hit back hard, sometimes with unparable counterattacks. Mancubus, for example, triggers shockwaves that quake the ground around it, and Pinky Rider charges with its mount. While the first 2 types of enemies are dealt with using shield charge and shield parry primarily, for fighting the third and fourth types, shield throw and the shield saw mechanics are crucial. Starting with the second level of the game, when Doomslayer finds this great attachment, your shield, when thrown, digs into demon flesh and rips it apart. It not only looks awesome, but also stuns enemies in the process. You can use shield saw to stun almost any type of demon. But for evasive and long-range enemies, it's essential. If you need to slow down Revenant, for example, or stop Mancubus from doing its earth-shaking thing, using the shield saw becomes your best option. Shield throw is also quite useful for breaking enemy armor. Some demons happen to have metal plates covering their bodies, and if you manage to superhit the metal, your shield, when thrown, will shatter it. The same thing, by the way, works with groups of soldiers hiding behind large metal shields. Once superheated, those shields will shatter as well, killing their owners in the process. But it's important to remember, this is not the only way to deal with several demons at once. There are more, all connected to your shield. In Doom: The Dark Ages, it's not just the arenas that have grown larger. The number of enemies you face has increased significantly. While you're busy handling the heavy demons we've already discussed, you're constantly swarmed by fodder, zombies, imps, and soldiers. These enemies are essentially walking resource packs meant to be cracked open for health and ammo. Their constant attacks are destructing at best and deadly at worst, especially on higher difficulties. Together, they often act as a secondary threat, an added layer in the combat puzzle. Naturally, the game equips you with tools to manage them, shield upgrades and shield runes. Both help with the crowd control, but runes are especially effective. There are 4 shield runes in the Dark Ages. Outer Turret spawns a shoulder-mounted gun that fires automatically. Once upgraded, it also causes enemies to drop health. Ground Fissure sends out a shockwave along the ground that slams enemies. When upgraded, it ignites them, causing them to drop armor. Holy Swarm fires a cluster of daggers that quickly cut through weaker enemies. And Heaven Splitter summons bolts of lightning. Upgraded, it causes enemies to explode on death, damaging others nearby. What's clever is that all of these effects are passive. You don't need to press any new buttons or take your focus off fighting the heavy demons. All runes activate through actions you're already performing, like deflecting projectiles. Another reminder that the shield isn't just defense, it's how you solve the puzzle. Of course, there are many more ways to approach combat in the Dark Ages beyond the shield. From guns, which deserve a whole other video, to melee weapons. But the shield is at the heart of it all. It's something that once seemed out of place in the genre, yet now feels like the most natural thing in the world.